In this video,
I got kicked out of my job because one day I decided to wear the hijab apartment, so I was homeless. I had a week to pick up my stuff. Me, if I take off my veil and I stay for another season in the hotel, they will pay me double of my salary. If somebody opens my heart by force, it's it's my it's my truth. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to part 3 of my convert story. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2, make sure you do that. And yeah, so I promised a miracle, and this video will have a very, very special moment that I would love to share, and I've never shared it anywhere before. It's quite personal, but let's go into it. So I stopped the last video where I learned how to pray. It was a public restaurant where my by then just newly met husband, we were not married but in that point, we married 3 years after, but he was showing me how to pray. SubhanAllah, for every prayer I do, he gets his sawab. For me teaching my kids how to pray, his sawab just keeps flowing in. May Allah bless him. So anyway, it would be so cool, by the way, to have his side of the story shared somewhere, because he was just a 20-year-old guy who wanted to have fun and a beach party, and he happened to meet me and carry a lot of responsibility for his young age. And yeah, it's not easy to have a newly convert person in your life full of insecurities and traumas and trust issues and future fears. So may Allah bless him for his intentions and all his support. So what happened? We were 3 weeks meeting every day after work in public areas. I would ask him any kind of question. Most of the things he couldn't answer me, why our Prophet married several women, and like lots of basic questions that I felt, yes, he is knowledgeable, but he's afraid to say the wrong answer. So he would call people that he would trust with the answer and come back to me. So he took that very, very seriously, not to just answer by his own mind and emotion, but to make sure that it's a trusted source and it's a trusted info. After 3 weeks him going back to university, I didn't know what to do. And yeah, I really knew that I have to change location. I was located by the Red Sea in a touristic compound with hotels and mostly tourists coming, a little town. However, I needed to go to a real city, be surrounded by a supportive community, and have a job where I can pursue my journey in Islam. And yeah, I didn't know how to do that, obviously. I didn't have a job. So what happened? I lost my job. I got kicked out of my job because one day I decided to wear the hijab. I was 3.5 months a Muslim, and I just met that guy that turned out to be my husband today. But by then it was just someone who was very genuine and helpful. Yes, I liked him a lot, and I knew deep inside he will be my husband. But by then this wasn't like, it was an unspoken truth. However, yeah, there was no flirt. There was not those kind of conversations happening. So I decided to wear the hijab. I was not very strong in my Islam yet. I just knew that this is part of my religion, and I didn't yet tell my parents anything. I didn't know what the future holds for me, but I knew that me accepting Islam as my religion also logically follows that I have to be veiled, because that's what women do in Islam. That was my knowledge status. So I just did it, and I remember how my by then not husband yet picked me up for going to, I don't know, lunch or something, and I opened the door and I was veiled. And he said, a fast car does easier accidents. You're not ready to have the consequences of that decision. It is a big step. And I kept it on. I kept it on for 5 years actually. I kept it on and I lost my job. They kicked me out of the hotel. They provided also my apartment, so I was homeless. I had a week to pick up my stuff. And not just that, they also offered me, if I take off my veil and I stay for another season in the hotel, they would pay me double of my salary. Subhanallah, Shaitan is testing us whenever we get closer to Allah. And I would have been really tempted not to be homeless, not to be jobless, if I wouldn't know that this is really what I have to pursue and where I have to continue my way. I don't know, subhanAllah, where I got my strength from and this belief to just stay strong to myself. It's, subhanAllah, I'm really, really impressed of myself being 19 and being able to do all of that. So I was having a week to pick up my stuff, leave the apartment, figuring out where to go, had no money saved, had no parents that would help me financially. And this guy that I just met 3 weeks ago, so he took me with him to Cairo, and he asked some friends of his that were growing up in his hometown as neighbors, a woman with 2 daughters. They are 10 years older than me. They are teachers in school, and they would live very central and would provide me a bed to sleep in. I shared the room with one of the girls, and I would live there till I was able to rent my own apartment, find a job, get settled. Iman, I will share the name, so it's difficult to say, oh, it's my by then not husband yet. So his name is Iman. Iman took me every day, rotating all different schools and nurseries and daycares, drop my CV and apply for jobs. It took me 3 months because, as I said, it was September. School had already started. The educational year was already started, so no one was searching for teachers, and it was quite challenging to find a job. And eventually I ended up in the German school and found a position as a sports and art teacher, and working then the primary stage. Someone got pregnant. I was able to jump in and fill in some hours, and yeah, I finally had a paycheck and got my own apartment. So I came to Cairo. 3 months I lived with friends or with a family that was very close to the family of my future husband of Iman, and then I was able to rent an apartment. I told my family. My siblings didn't understand and didn't support, felt that I'm very weird and got very distant. My mother came to Cairo, met me. She was quite supportive, she was accepting, and even more important, she started to educate herself about Islam, reading even some parts of the Quran and saying, we have much more in common than what divides us. And as long as I still see my daughter in this veil, that's all what matters. Her reaction was really, really positive and encouraging. However, we were not really close, so she would have anyway not have a relationship to me, even if she, like, I moved out with 16. I told you in part 1 of this videos that I was living evening in an orphanage for 1.5 years. We had a lot of unspoken issues between us by then, and it was really anyway very hard to have a relationship. So for her to accept me was anyway the only way she would have still a foot in the door with me and still any kind of contact with me. I don't want to put her bad intentions, but yeah, I didn't really expect my mom to like react in a bad way. But yeah, it's of course a bit strange or weird first to hear such news. What happened next? I worked for 3 years in the school. We got engaged. We were last year of his university, him applying to jobs, having a little paycheck only. We got married after 3 years. I studied the 3 years that I just came to Cairo with an Islamic teacher who spoke fluent German. She's a graduate from a German school, and she studied Sharia and Islamic law and Islamic knowledge, and was able to answer all my questions and to learn. Yeah, I was able to learn what is a strong, what is a weak hadith, how do we differentiate, how do we answer questions of non-Muslims, how do we invite to Islam, what do we learn from the prophets, the wives of the prophets, their characteristics of Allah, general knowledge, but also the seerah, the story of the prophets. So I was able to get a proper foundation of knowledge about Islam. And may Allah bless her for all her efforts. This was one of the things that kept me going so far, having this foundation of knowledge about it that would make me strong to defend it in front of family and friends. After I came to Cairo, it was just Ramadan. I was living in this family and I went regularly to Taraweeh prayer. It was the only moment I would meet Iman. And we met saying hello, going into the mosque, seeing each other after the mosque. He would bring me home. That's what we did for the whole month of Ramadan. Me trying to pray with my 2 papers. I remember that praying in the beginning took me half an hour. It was also really hard on myself. I wanted to do it perfect. So whenever I felt I did a mistake, I started from the beginning. Everything was really a struggle. And I struggled for Allah. And we know that if we struggle for Allah, we get rewarded by Allah. And this is really what happened. Even saying the Shahada, it made me strong to pursue on my way to Islam. However, I didn't yet feel really part of Islam. I didn't feel accepted yet as a Muslim. I will explain what this means. I was regularly going to the Taraweeh prayer in Ramadan. I was not able to memorize what I should say in a prayer. It was for me such a struggle to just say the Fatiha, just to say in the different positions what I should say, and to memorize even Kul Huwallahu Ahad, like little ayah out of the Quran to use for prayer. And it looked for me like a mission impossible. It was even frustrating at times, and I wanted to give up at times. Not to give up to be a Muslim, but like to figure a way that I could maybe do that in German, or that I could do something instead of that. And it was very, very frustrating. However, I kept going, I kept trying. And it was night 27. It was night 27 in the mosque of Taraweeh prayer. A mosque in Mu'atam, if you're from Egypt. And people around me in the prayer room switched off the lights. Me not being able to read my paper, not knowing how to pray. And I would say, I need the light so I could pray. And they would say, you can anyway not pray with the paper in the hand. How could you? You could read the dua from the paper, but you cannot hold the paper while you pray. And then I said, but I'm a new Muslim, I'm a new convert, I don't know yet how to pray without reading the stuff. And I was really, really not understood even from the people there in that mosque. May Allah forgive them and guide them to the right path. I was in the darkness of that mosque, night 27 of Ramadan, October 2007. Subhanallah, having goosebumps just remembering that night. In my Asr or Maghrib prayer, I was able to memorize like about half of what I need for prayer. In that night, a miracle happened to me that night, because the light was off, I couldn't read my paper, and I, by very calm heart, was able to say everything in the right position at the right time. And for you, maybe watching this video now, you don't find that special, but for me, not knowing how to memorize even half of that, all of a sudden, being helped out, not reading my paper and to say it by my heart like that, was so overwhelming. And I was crying and so thankful for me being allowed to pray and be part of that Taraweeh prayer without having a paper in my hand. I remember bending over in the next 2 rakah and praying, thanking God, thanking Allah for being able to pray now, and how this is taking so much load from my shoulders. And something I can't even explain till today or understand logically, I felt not just a psychological but a physical pain in that moment, as if somebody opens my heart by force. I'm almost not able to breathe from the physical pain I have. Stretching it really strong. I was about to collapse from the pain I felt. And I was filled by something. I was like, something entered my body, something healed, something came inside my heart. It was, as I said, physical, almost not bearable. And I got up, trying to get air, not understanding what happened, having so much pain. Even after like the stretching part is over, I still can feel that something was like pulled apart, and it takes some moments of me actually massaging and stuff to calm down the pain, and I didn't understand what happened to me. After a while, I was able to continue the rest of the prayer. I was able to memorize it. I was able to say it. From that day, I can pray without a paper. And much later in my Islam lessons, I heard the story of our Prophet ﷺ, how he got the Iman by an angel in his heart, physically. And I am 100% sure that this is what happened to me in that night, subhanAllah. I got physically the Iman of Islam in that night. It's what I believe. It's my truth. The only way I could explain that, physical and psychologically. Together with the miracle of now able to pray from a few hours earlier, only memorizing half of it, to fully being able to pray. It was a very, very special night, and I remember how I just told my fiance, or my, by then still not yet fiance, but how I told Iman after coming out of the mosque what happened to me, and him not able to logically digest that. And it stayed with me for many years, this night, how special, until today when I remember it, it's unbelievable. So yeah, regularly attending the Islam classes helped me to answer my siblings that were not yet very welcoming. 3 came to my wedding. One night before my wedding, I got an email from one of my uncles saying, Jesus already died for your sins on the cross, but I want to tell you that you're doing a huge mistake by marrying a Muslim. This is something you will regret. He wasn't welcomed in the family. I wasn't welcomed in the family. It's been tough, it's been hard. And by me having the first grandchild, we got closer again. I gave my daughter, 2 years after we got married, I was 26, I gave my daughter the name that I chose after converting to Islam. However, I never used that convert name because I believe only a mother is allowed to give a child a name. And unless that is very necessary for someone to open a new chapter in life, which I don't want to judge here, being a mom now, it would hurt me very much that my child would change the birth name. So I decided also to keep my birth name, and I don't think it will make any difference to Allah if I'm called Elizabeth or the name that I chose for my daughter, and I chose after converting officially. I went to Azhar, the institute, to get a certificate that I became Muslim. They told me by then I needed to prove, if I want to go to Umrah or to Hajj, that I'm a Muslim. I went to Umrah now and they didn't ask for any paper, but by then inside Azhar they asked me to choose an Islamic name, and I chose that name because it's the name of my grandmother, and I wanted a name that is in my family and still can be pronounced or has a meaning in Arabic. I don't want to share the name here because my first daughter is called that name, and I want to keep that for ourselves. Yeah, this is my story of how I converted to Islam, and I have a second strong story because a lot of things happen afterwards. We are 18 years after I converted, and life is not always easy. It comes with its ups and downs, with its tests, and yeah, I took off my hijab after 5 years and went through a lot of struggles. And if you're interested, leave me the thumb up, spread this video, send me in the comments if you want to have that story of my miracle that happened to me during Umrah, how I decided after 13 years to wear it again. Assalamu alaikum.